Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and I'm joined as always by my co-host Sam Proof. And I'm just remembering to hit a few buttons as we get started here today. But today on the show we're talking all about vertical live streaming and the platforms that we have available to us these days and how you might like to think about using those and some of the tools and technologies that are behind them. We do have a special guest this week and I'll introduce them to you in a second. But Sam, how are you going? How's your week been?
Yeah, I'm going all right. It's been a weird week. We've got like a lot of just like life drama kind of stuff happening, but it is what it is, and we're gonna get through it. Next week, I'm most likely gonna be here, but part of that life drama is we had back a few weeks ago, actually a couple months at this point, like this torrential downpour in Los Angeles, and discovered that there was a hole in our roof. So we have to leave for a couple of days while they fix things. Because they're gonna like take out all the insulation and we don't want to breathe all that in. But it should be done Thursday is what they tell me, so I should be here next week. But if I'm not, I'm sorry, folks. I'll check in from the hotel. How's everything with you, John?
Everything's going pretty well. Again, another busy week as always. But, thank you to the people that are joining us. I'll check in with their comments in just a second. But if you are watching live, hashtag Team Live. And if you're watching this later on, do hashtag Team Replay. That's the thing that I refuse to stop trying to make happen, like Fetch. But anyway, it is what it is. We'll check in with the comments in a second. But first of all, let's introduce you to our special guests. So today, joining us from Micro Studio is the man, the myth, the legend, Garen Belaney.
What's up, y'all? What's up? How's everybody doing?
Nice.
Doing pretty well. It's great to have your company. And I must admit, I brought Garen on in part because I was a little worried that Sam might not be here. And I kind of want him to talk about TikTok, which is something I don't really have access to in terms of live streaming. So we'll definitely get into that. But the other thing, too, is that, we do have a whole bunch of opportunities and tools at our disposal. So we're going to unpack some of that today. But I just want to check in with the comments really quickly. Hi to Livestream Consultants, saying hello from the southern New Mexico. And Saeed, the facilitator, is joining us from Germany. Hello to Roy, Tech Troublemaker. If we need a Mac perspective, we definitely have Roy in the comments. So he's a big fan of Ecamm Live, and he does do that on YouTube and Instagram at the same time, which is really cool. It's one of those opportunities that we have now with the tools that are available to us. So let's get stuck in. If you do have questions, just throw them in the chat. We'll get to them as we go along, but let's get stuck into the first segment. So I guess we need to talk about TikTok, and it's a kind of a weird time to be talking about TikTok because obviously there's a lot of hot drama happening in the American Congress. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that, Sam is obviously an American, Garen is a Canadian, and I'm an Australian. So this might potentially, if it happens, and that's a big if at this point in time, it's going to be really interesting to see the impact on various people across the world. So I don't really want to dwell on that too long, but I just wanted to acknowledge that because it is definitely a thing that is potentially happening right now. But Garen, I know you do a lot on TikTok. Can you talk to us about, what you're doing over there and how it's going?
Of course. So for everybody's watching, I'm a professional live streamer and content creator. So I've been live streaming for close to 4 years now. My main platform over the past 4 years was on LinkedIn. And just with what I'm doing with my agency and wanting to constantly push myself to new limits, I dove into this world of TikTok live streaming. It's kind of a strategic process when you first start out. There's a few hoops that you have to hop into before you get access to live streaming. It was very similar to LinkedIn when they first launched their live streaming, where you had to do an application form and then go through a whole process. And there was things like that had to go on TikTok, such as having 1,000 followers and then registering as a business and all of these little things that happened. So I've been live streaming on TikTok for about 35 days now, I think we said backstage, and I've logged over 140 hours of live streaming. And the purpose of me doing this was to build a case study on how we can build an organic and authentic community just through strategic live streaming on an organic basis. And it's crazy. It's a Wild West on TikTok. It's a phenomenal platform. I love it just as far as the support that you get as a live streamer. And TikTok has done a phenomenal job as gamifying the app. And I say gamifying the app, making it almost like a VLT kind of style where the audience can give out gifts, micro contact gifts, and the host can actually interact with that and get compensated for all of their efforts and everything. And today was actually the first day that I withdrawed all my balance on TikTok into my PayPal. So today was the official day that I became a paid live streamer through TikTok. But an amazing platform. So it's really crazy on what's happening, but it's an interesting platform to be diving into just as far as a live streaming perspective.
Nice. And so, I mean, first of all, congratulations. I mean, it sounds like you're doing some great things over there. I'm really curious to, and I know that Sam's done a little bit of this in the past as well, and we'll talk about the specifics of the technology, and I think TikTok have their own sort of studio experience there as well. But I guess the thing that I hear anecdotally is that you do need to stream on a fairly regular basis, or TikTok will take that away from you. Is that correct?
It's I mean, I don't know if it might actually have that. I hadn't run into that issue just because, but you're actually right with when you get access to the TikTok Studio. So there's two different varieties that you can actually live stream. So if it's of course through the mobile, and this is another reason why I dove into the TikTok world, because just as a live streamer, I get a lot of not a doubt, but just a lot of intimidation from a lot of people saying, oh, I don't have a studio, I don't have the fancy camera, I don't have the fancy microphone, I don't need to go live streaming. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back to basics. I invested in a brand new iPhone 15, and I said, all right, I'm just going to live stream on my iPhone and see how that goes. And just, eliminate any sort of objection that I used to get and would always get as a live streamer, to where I'm saying, hey, listen, if you have a cell phone, you can monetize this, you can build a big brand on it, you can build an organic community through it. So there's that strategy on the mobile. But then, of course, TikTok Studio has its own OBS style version of their live streaming, and that is where you need to get access for. So in order for you to get access to the TikTok Live Studio on your desktop, you do have to do, when you first get live streaming on your mobile, you have to perform 2 live streams at a maximum or a minimum of 25 minutes each. And then you get access into the TikTok Studio. And then exactly what you said, there's criteria. You get 14-day access, and you have to do, and Sam can probably confirm, but you have to do some sort of, so many hours of live streaming on there. Then you get access to 180 days, and then continue that way. And then you get advanced another 180 days. So it is kind of cool, because it brings the legitimacy of constantly having to live stream or making it an actual habit to go into. And then, I mean, you take something away, you kind of have that scarcity aspect of it. So it holds you a little bit more accountable. And then, of course, it really weeds out the people who are not serious about live streaming, and which increases the quality of the live stream, which increases the quality of the content, and makes the overall platform a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's been so long since I did the requirements. I think it was only like 3 days, or like 3 separate streams of like an hour each or something to hit that first unlock mark, if you will. So it's not unattainable. It's pretty easy.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It was the last thing that I even, wasn't really a worry for me, because the metrics are so low. But again, there is some metrics behind it to keep that. But it is interesting, because you definitely don't get pushed out as much doing live streaming on the Livestream Studio as if you do on the mobile.
Oh yeah.
And that was another case study that I was building on. Just through this last month of me live streaming, I would do 2 or 3 a week on the desktop studio, and the quality is impeccable. It's crazy how crisp the TikTok quality is, and even the recordings on the back half. It's beautiful. It's beautiful as far as repurposing content and doing that. But it definitely doesn't push you out nearly as much as when you do live streaming on your phone, which was encouraging for me too, because again, it just goes back to the fact where you don't have to limit yourself to a desktop. So my strategy as a TikToker is, we talk about top level marketing, where you use the mobile phone to create attraction, create an abundance of people seeing what you're doing. And what I like to do is, what's cool about TikTok is you can do a subscription only live stream. So you can actually do a live stream where it's only subscribers that are paying. So what a typical game plan for me is, in the mornings when I would stream 3 to 6 hours a day. I would do X amount of hours on the mobile, and I would tell everybody, okay, this afternoon I'm going to be doing a video editing training on my desktop through the mobile, or through the TikTok Live Studio, and it'll be subscription only. And then they come into and everything like that. So that's where it's a kind of cool way to actually monetize everything and get that, so the quality for it. So I would say the mobile is for top level marketing, and then when you're going more strategic and more intimate with your following and your community, using the live stream studio is a phenomenal way, because of the quality and everything that comes in the back half of it.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting. I guess in some ways I love the idea of going live from my phone, but I don't love the experience of it for the most
Yeah.
part. And I say that as someone who doesn't really have has never done that on TikTok, but certainly I'm an Android phone user. It's very difficult for me to get decent audio from my phone, and I do have external USB microphones, but even with those, I'm not loving the experience of that. I am sort of curious, what does, like, is there a huge departure between what you're doing with the iPhone 15 and what you're doing in studio in terms of quality?
No, the quality is relatively good. And I mean, the iPhone 15, I just love the quality on this phone is fantastic. But what's amazing is what I love about this, it's a USB-C on the bottom, USB-C port. So when we talk about what my new micro studio is, I'll show you. I have a portable monitor because every time I'm doing live streaming, what a lot of people do is they'll use the front of their camera. So you can see the comments and you can do that, but you reduce your quality immensely anytime you use the front of your camera, right? So I'm always about quality. So I'm doing the back of the camera, and then I'll have a portable monitor that I'm using. I'll plug in the USB-C to USB-C into the phone and into the monitor, and then I'm able to watch the comments and everything in real time while using the back of my camera and everything like that. So this is my new micro studio. I got a $150 portable monitor. I got an iPhone stand that you get on Amazon, and then my phone, right? And then of course I'll use a couple lights to create that quality and everything too. But you can't deny the quality on the TikTok live studio is better because I'm using mirrorless cameras and everything that I'm doing right now as far as features, it's all the exact same thing. What I'll do with my cameras, and this is going to the vertical concept, is I'll turn my camera into a vertical mode. So like this, typically when you have your camera lined up like this or something like that, I'm turning the camera this way into a vertical standpoint so you get the higher quality and just the it's kind of a better ratio, just because that's the time when you go into a vertical standpoint. Lots of times if we're doing a horizontal, you typically get squished and you almost look like you're squished in the screen. So this gives it more of that more of a natural look to it. So you have more of like a body ratio and it looks a little bit more natural kind of thing. So that's the strategy. But again, the quality on the TikTok live studio there's no question it's way better than the mobile, but you get way better reach when you're on your mobile than on that. So it's kind of like a trade-off.
Sure. I mean, and I love the idea of doing a bit of both. That sounds really like a great strategy. I just want to check in with the chat a little bit.
Yeah, some good
a lot of people having a lot of feelings about TikTok, and I totally get it. So Roy's saying he won't miss TikTok. Hello to CG, who's joining us as well. Great to have your company today. Saeed mentioned too that he's never actually watched a TikTok video unless they're sort of repurposed on another platform. I must admit, I'm on TikTok in the sense that I really like, it's such a guilty pleasure for me to just scroll through and watch random things for hours at a time. And occasionally I'll post a video, but I don't really feel like the stuff I do is a natural fit for that particular platform. So I will definitely miss it if it goes away in terms of being a consumer, but certainly as someone who flicks through the For You feed, I do see a lot of live streams pop up, and I think, in terms of the discoverability, that potentially could be quite a good thing. But again, live stream consultants, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I also don't really do a lot of consuming of live on TikTok, but I watch a lot of TikTok in general. And I feel like 99% of the live TikToks that get served to me are just people selling stuff, and I have no interest in that. But occasionally there's that one funny guy that does cooking stuff, and I enjoy those. But I think the big thing for me is that at least the streams I have seen don't feel as interactive as on a YouTube or a Twitch. And that's just the ones that I'm hitting, probably.
Sure. And I guess there is that whole thing about, just being, relying on what the algorithm serves up for you. But I just want to check in with this question. So a live stream consultant's right. Sounds like doing a mobile stream Monday and Wednesday and then doing a studio stream on Friday for subs would be a reasonable strategy. Does that sound about right for those that get that access?
Yeah, I like the idea of that. I think that's a really cool strategy for that. You can do a subs only live stream on your mobile also. But again, I I went from 3 to 6 hours of live streaming. I'm actually tuning it down because I also think, limiting your access on live stream increases the desirability of wanting to watch more. Because, if Garen's live streaming 6 hours a day every single
Right.
day, I mean, it's a little bit different, but it's like, oh, he's only live streaming an hour. You're more enticed to actually want to come in and monitor it and everything. But what I loved about TikTok is, to my knowledge, TikTok is the only live streaming platform that the longer you're on, the more you get pushed out to random people constantly. If I'm live streaming on LinkedIn, it's just my followers. YouTube, just my followers. Instagram, right? So I'm just looking at my analytics right now. Over the last 42 days, I've accumulated almost 46,000 views, right? Which is like, for just starting out,
yeah,
that's not bad, right? That's some pretty good analytics. I didn't get any of those statistics on any other live stream and stuff like that. So that's where I really love the idea of top level marketing on TikTok. There's a lot of younger people on TikTok, which is a concern for a lot of people. But what was cool is there's an audience control feature on TikTok. Before you go live, you hit the audience control feature that monitors 18 and plus, which filters out a lot of the younger kids you have to worry about. But it's just like life, kids show up with a fake ID and then they end up in your stream somehow. So there are times that they just roll up kind of thing, but it's definitely it's limited to that perspective.
Yeah, I would just add to what live stream consultant said that, like, I think schedule wise, just doing 2 sort of public streams and then a third that's a sub only stream is really the overall like factor there. Whether or not you're doing it on mobile or studio is really more about, what the content is itself. Like, if you're just doing this, if you're just talking, then you don't need to worry about if it's on studio at all. And you can just do the sub only the other way. But if you have things you want to present or other elements you want to bring in, that's where TikTok Studio really comes in handy, because it's very much like Garen said, like an OBS kind of experience.
And I guess there are a couple of things from what Garen just explained that I want to kind of pick up on. And I guess, first of all, I get the impression, and again, this might be me projecting as a consumer of TikTok, but I get the impression people are on TikTok mostly to be entertained and to be distracted and just have a good time. Whereas and it's really interesting because I go to YouTube to learn things. Like it's not to say I don't go there to be entertained, but primarily when I go to TikTok, it's really because my brain is tired and I just want something funny to laugh at. But I guess the other thing he says, completely forgetting his train of thought, I might have to come back to that other point when it occurs to me. But I just wanted to note too that you're clearly quite influential, and it looks like you may have already convinced Saeed to run out and buy a mobile monitor as well. And I thought that was a really savvy approach. I guess it's interesting, the traditional things that I've seen to sort of compensate for that front camera arrangement, and I'm not sure if I've got a photo of this here. I've never really used this, but I bought it for like $5, and it's essentially just a ring light that's got a couple of places for 2 different phones. And traditionally, back in the days of when Instagram first got started, it was very popular to have one with the comments facing you and the other one with the camera facing you as well. So, I mean, that's certainly an approach to do that. But I guess, like Garen, as someone who creates, you're influencing people, you're selling products, but you're also sort of educating people about this kind of technology. Do you find that there's a different appetite or a different audience for those things in the streams and the videos that you create on TikTok specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's a definite strategy. I definitely want to come from a standpoint of an education standpoint. I think on TikTok there's enough entertainment. So this is talked about a lot on LinkedIn, but just edutainment, being able to come in and this is where it's kind of cool where I come in, because I'm able to get brand deals and I'm able to be able to, I guess, the influential aspect, but I can teach people, hey, this is how you reach out to potential brands. This is how do you want to watch how I create this video? There's one time I was on TikTok and I was creating a video behind the scenes. So I was using all my proper camera, but I just had my mobile in the back half, just like behind the scenes. And I'm telling them, okay, I'm placing the camera like this. I'm using the key light down here. I'm using a backlight here, and doing the education that way. And it was very well receptive. And it was a lot of people did like it. But again, when people come onto live stream, they love to be acknowledged. You know what I mean? Especially on a TikTok when it's such a quick scroll kind of thing, being able to address them right away and talk to them. So again, you want to take live streaming seriously. Those can be segments throughout a week that if you want to do three live streams a week, it's like, hey, this one I'm going to be center focused. I'm going to be looking at the screen. letting the audience know, hey, I'm here to acknowledge you and have a conversation. Another stream is, hey, here's the behind the scenes of how I make money in my profession. This is how I do my approach. And then having that VIP experience where the subs only in the Instagram or the TikTok live stream studio, where it's more of an intimate, you get the highest quality and you can incorporate that. And it's kind of cool. One thing I did last week was I was on TikTok live studio, but I played my very first live stream on LinkedIn. So I went to my YouTube, I popped up my old live stream. I think it was October of 2021. And I was just watching it. It was the longest time since I've watched it. So all of a sudden it kind of became this reaction live stream where I was like, oh, wow, like this was me 2 years ago. And we were analyzing my live stream. It was kind of like game film. And, you know, there's that kind of strategy behind it too. So there is the entertainment aspect, because my LinkedIn live streams were very, very much like a lot of entertainment and doing a lot of things. But then there's that education aspect, like, hey, this is what was going through my thought process during this time. This is why I did that, and even edits and stuff like that too.
Nice. Okay, this is the video and live streaming show. We're going to come back and talk about a particular OBS plugin which we're quite fond of using for vertical things, especially. So we'll be back in a moment to talk more about that.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, you know, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. And you can also get, you know, your feed of cute kittens. I know there's always something happening in that particular world, so definitely worth checking out. This is a video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey. I'm joined by Sam Proof and our special guest for today, Garen Belaney from Micro Studio. Just going to check in with the chat briefly. So hello to Dr. Alam, who's joining us over on LinkedIn, and Stefan, who's joining us from Sweden. Great to have your company here today. We really appreciate that. But I guess before we get stuck into the ATOM stuff, Say does have a question. What would you say works better on TikTok, live streams or sort of pre-recorded material?
Yeah, definitely going to want to do live stream is what the cool thing is about it. But what also I want to talk about just with live streaming on TikTok, the fact it records everything for you. So you actually can go to a live recording segment after your live videos, and it has all of your pre-recorded live videos there that you can download. And then you can chop that up into the micro content, which is what a lot of people do with the live stream. And what I actually did with my editor is, because when you're on TikTok, there's all of like the titles and there's the actual engagements and the hearts going and the comments flowing and everything. The live recording doesn't have that. It's just the blank screen. So I talked to my editor. I'm like, listen, how do we make this look like an actual live stream? So I contracted him to mimic the TikTok live stream, to where we have a template now where I can take all of my live streams. I go to DaVinci Resolve editing, and this is any content too, and I have an overlay where it mimics looking like a live stream. So now I take these short form live streams and then I produce it, but then I put this overlay on top of it to make it look like it's an actual real live stream. So that's where it's kind of, I think, is the catch-22, where you can take a pre-recorded live stream, make it look like an actual live stream, and have it in the feed. Because what's cool about TikTok is when you're live streaming, it'll actually push your live stream in the For You page. So if there's people just randomly scrolling, your live stream will actually pull up automatically for you. So if you're going to have a video that makes it look like it's a live stream, you can kind of trick them a little bit. And that was one of my strategies for going live on TikTok. Before I go live, I would always post a video first, because then I have TikTok pushing my video that I just posted, and then TikTok's also pushing my live stream. So I'm kind of getting 2 birds with 1 stone. And then my actual recording, when I'm live, it has a little blue by my display picture. It's actually hovering, saying that I'm live. So it's encouraging them to actually come into the live. So it kind of crisscrosses a little bit there too. So that's where, but live streaming is definitely going to be where you're successful on TikTok. Taking those live streams afterwards, repurpose them, is where you're going to find that.
Nice. I love the idea, and I think it's always worthwhile to think about how you are recording and repurposing things, whether it's on the phone or whether it's on a desktop application. So that's really awesome. And again, another question. So live streams are typically a community building exercise by being more intimate with the viewers. Have you found this to be true on TikTok as well?
100%. Yeah, and this is where it's kind of cool, where over the last 35 days, I was able to accumulate 15 paying subscribers. And what is also amazing about TikTok, and this is not even me, this is just me showing up. And what I did is I made it cheap. It was $5 a month. You know what I mean? And it got to the point where we had 3 or 4 people that paid, and we kind of guilted people. We're like, listen, less than $5, you know what I mean? It's less than a cup of coffee. But what happens is when they pay for this subscription, TikTok automatically takes off 50%. Yeah. It goes into PayPal. PayPal takes off their percent, goes into my bank account. The government takes out their percent. So by the end of the subscription, that $5, I may be getting 25 cents. So that's where it's like the whole aspect of but getting them in there, but getting them to pay. But what also is amazing is it automatically routes them into my Discord. So I built out a Discord community. So every paying subscriber on TikTok, it automatically places them into my Discord. It gives them a label. And then that's where I'm going into my Discord and I'm diving in more intimately and upselling them my bigger packages, because then that way it's not taking so much off the top. So I make my TikTok subscription stupidly low for a purpose, just to get them the concept of actually paying the content creator and getting them into that motion. And then also they get a little VIP badge. And then, of course, what I did, John, is I gave every VIP gets a custom Juno emoji. So when the comments are in, they ever get to put their own custom Juno emoji. So we get a little sweet baby Juno in there. She's a fan of the show, so I have no problem exploiting my dog for engagement. So she's definitely TikTok famous. But, you know what I mean, for $5 a month. And then, of course, I treat them extra special. When they have the VIP badge pop up in the comments, I treat them extra special. And, again, for $5 a month and me coming in for – at that, it was 3 to 6 hours a day, right? Yeah. So it's like you're getting the value, and they asked a lot of very valuable questions, and I would teach them, and that's where kind of the education comes in too. So a phenomenal way to build out a community. There is a lot of garbage on TikTok too, like there's a lot of like sketchy people and a lot of weird stuff. But again, you put a price tag on something, that's where you're going to weed out and start getting more quality followers and people who actually truly engage into you, and then route them into Discord, and then that's where you can upsell them your services.
Nice.
I love the idea of that sort of being a top of funnel kind of arrangement, like just getting them to buy in ever so slightly. And I try to do that with a lot of free content, but I think the minute they actually give you some money, they're much more invested.
Yes, money talks every time. Free, people take free advantage of free, which is okay. But again, if you're trying to make this a business, you can't be ashamed to ask for money, because again, you're providing the value and it's there kind of thing. So it's the first step for them to really make the commitment. And then again, just like with your education and your entertainment, you overvalue, you give them everything you absolutely can to build that trust for them.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is the video on Livestreaming Show. We're talking about going live in the vertical orientation, and obviously a lot of these platforms let you just open an app on your phone, but there are a number of different ways of doing it. And I think one of my favorites, and certainly one of Sam's favorites, and I'm sure Garen probably approves of this too, and I've got a screenshot because of course I do, is the Atom Vertical plugin for OBS Studio. So I'll get you guys to talk to this a little bit more after I introduce it, but essentially it gives you the ability to go live horizontally and vertically, potentially at the same time, or record in these different formats. You can actually set up different scenes and link those scenes. So when you switch from one in the horizontal, the equivalent scene will go on the vertical option as well, which is really, really cool. And like OBS Studio itself, it is literally free. Like, it is no money at all. And it's insane that this functionality is available to us in 2024, but also that it doesn't cost anything at all. So, Sam, I know you've got a video that we'll play in just a moment, but I guess, is there anything you want to say to set that up before we do that?
Yeah. Like we were talking about with Livestream Consultant's comment earlier, there's multiple ways to go live to TikTok. And really, it's just about what your needs are. So again, if you're just doing straight talking to camera, this is probably beyond what you need, unless you're also looking to maybe multicast to several different platforms, and then this will open that up. But it will also give you the ability to build out really complex, scenes with multiple sources, and you can, do all of the fun stuff that OBS does, which is like move things around and turn on different sources and you know, basically go crazy with it. So yeah, it's something that you probably need to put a little thought into before you do it. But yeah, I think it's extremely useful.
Okay, cool. So we might just watch this and I'll come back and talk to Garen because I'd really love to get his perspective on this as well.
If you want to start streaming or even multicasting to TikTok using your desktop, I'm going to show you how. First, we're going to assume you've already downloaded and installed the ATEM Vertical plugin, which you can do at atem.tv. Click Products and head to Vertical. Download the installer there and run that on your computer. Head over into OBS. Once you're in OBS, you're going to open up your Vertical plugin. All right, go to the Docs menu and you're going to open up the Vertical and the Vertical scenes and the Vertical sources. I've already created a bunch of these just to save some time, but you can see they act much like the typical OBS scenes and sources, and you can create some very unique vertical scenes that don't have to be the same as your horizontal scenes. And in fact, you can link scenes in horizontal and vertical. So when you switch to one, you switch to the other. You'll run and open up your TikTok Studio, and you should see something like this. There are two ways to get your program feed from OBS into the TikTok Studio. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is using the built-in Vertical virtual camera from ATEM. So in OBS Studio, under the Vertical plugin, you're going to click this little yellow icon that looks like a camera with a monitor. If you hover over it, it will say Vertical Virtual Camera. You'll see the virtual camera in OBS startup. Keep in mind, if you use the standard horizontal virtual camera, this can only one of those can be activated at any time. That's why I have two ways to do this for you. But now that you've got your Vertical virtual camera going, we flip over to TikTok Studio. All right, in TikTok Studio, we are going to go in the top left here to add source. We will grab the camera option, hit add. And then from the camera dropdown, we will find our OBS virtual camera. And you should see that show up as a vertical source immediately. You can adjust the resolution, FPS, and other elements to your liking, but when you're ready, hit add source, and then just select it and drag that corner until it fits. You can also hit the stretch to screen option. So in OBS, if you've created some fancy scenes, like this Magic the Gathering gameplay scene, that will instantly show up in your TikTok and look amazing. And we'll head back into OBS. So what happens, we're going to stop that vertical virtual camera. What happens when you use the regular standard horizontal camera? If we go over to TikTok, turn that back on, it's going to get all squishy, right? So if you're doing something like multicasting somewhere else that you need to use your standard virtual camera, here's the way around that. Right-click on your ATEM program feed, and you're going to do a windowed projector. You'll see that same thing. Stretch that to fill your screen and try and get rid of any of those black bars on the tops and bottoms. If you have a vertical monitor, even better. For the sake of this tutorial, I am leaving it right here. We're going to head back into TikTok Studio. Now from TikTok Studio, we'll once again add source, but this time we're going to do a window capture. We'll hit add, and from the drop-down, we will select the OBS window projector preview and hit add source. You may choose to show or hide your cursor at that time. And once again, we'll stretch to screen. And there you go. We now have our beautiful layout presented in TikTok, and we're ready to go live. Yeah, so I'll add on. I was doing this video until like 5 minutes before we got ready to do. So there's a few notes that I didn't get to put in it. One, which is if you're really paying attention, the difference between the camera and the window capture, just in the default layout order on the TikTok Studio, the camera showed up at the top of the layers, which act much like an Adobe Photoshop. So if you have those sort of built-in TikTok overlays of like follower and alerts, you might need to move that down, whereas the window capture showed up at the bottom, so those were already on top. And the other thing I just want to reiterate is like, almost all of that, like those fancy scenes that I built out, can be created inside TikTok Studio itself. So you would want to use OBS when you're either doing, like I said, a multicast to multiple platforms, or if you're creating dynamic elements that are happening on the fly. I don't think there's a way for TikTok to bring in certain kinds of things like that. Like, I have overlay layers that are built by a chat bot. So until they connect that API, you have to do it through OBS.
Sure. So, Garen, I'm curious, are you using OBS, or are you just doing stuff in TikTok directly?
I got to say, I love that video. I thought that was an amazing tutorial, because what happened was at the ATEM, I downloaded it once on my OBS, and I experienced like lagging, like stuff started glitching out, and I got spooked really quick. I don't know what it was, but I got spooked. I'm like, no, not doing this. I'm done. It's like I have a very intricate like OBS, and like if it gets destroyed, I'm just like, oh my god. So very protective of it. So it was a few months ago. I downloaded it, and like I'm like, no, not doing it. So what I actually did was, when I'm live streaming, I'm making the conscious decision, okay, am I going to vertical live stream today, or am I going to horizontal live stream? And that's just what I've done for my decision. And then what I actually did was, I built a completely separate scene for OBS horizontal. So I would just change the aspect ratios on the OBS. I would switch the profile and the scene collections. I'd switch my cameras over. And that's just because I have, again, like what you said, I have so many scenes, so many different overlays. And it's like, I just didn't want to dabble in it and stuff like that. And then again, when I went into the TikTok Studio, I'm like, I'm just going to build out the TikTok Studio because... And the reasoning for that, too, is I found when I hit virtual camera on the TikTok, again, my computer was just, it wasn't doing as crispy as I wanted it to be. So I'm like, I'm going to run it through the TikTok Studio. And I find, too, a lot of people, if you don't have the proper computer to have OBS, you got to have a good computer to run an OBS, or else it's quite powerful on a computer. So I figured I'm going to build out a TikTok Studio only setup, design it that way, and then just run it. And I did it to a certain degree. I didn't go into more details. Like I didn't sync it up with my Stream Deck or anything like that yet. I haven't had time for it or anything like that. But I think that's a really great hack to be able to kill the two birds with one stone. Again, this is just a personal thing where I like hypersensitive. I'm like, all right, I don't even want to risk anything. So I went with that. But I do like the idea, like the TikTok Live Studio. I think it's a phenomenal platform. Again, just with quality and building it out. And I think that, especially with what's happening with TikTok, I feel that a lot of these companies like YouTube is going to come up with something just as good, if not better, I would imagine. And then, we are going to be diving into the Instagram world too. But I feel like Instagram is a little bit far behind when it comes to the live streaming concept of it. But I'm glad that video was played. Yeah, I think that video was well played and well designed, especially the fact that you did it 5 minutes beforehand. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good idea to do that. Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. I didn't even know there was an actual like a vertical virtual camera to click additionally on top of that. So I thought that was really, really cool. It's
a relatively recent addition to the plugin. It's been around for maybe 6 months, I think. And I will say that YouTube did actually release the ability to stream in Vertical as well now. So that is an option. So there's at least those three big vertical streaming platforms of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube available to people. So if you wanted to do a multicast, you would do that through OBS.
And I guess that's the thing that we're less sure of at this point in time, though, is how those vertical streams to YouTube show up, because I think they're, in theory, they show up in the Shorts experience, but in reality, I've never seen it.
So I will say, I will put this out there. I streamed, when I heard about it, I was like, well, I'm already doing the Kitten Cam 24/7, so let's see what happens. So I set it up, and I streamed Vertical 24/7 for about a week, maybe more. It didn't move the needle at all. It was so small, the results. I was like, and it was weirdly hard to actually get the analytics from it initially. So yeah, so far, meh. So maybe they'll put more into it later, but it seemed like a weird sort of addition for them that they just were like, well, let's do this. And then they didn't really think it through.
Sure. I guess a couple of other things I just want to say about the Atom Vertical plugin before we move on. In addition to Vertical virtual camera being difficult to say, just keep in mind that you can use the horizontal version or the vertical version, not both at the same time. Right. And that'll only have implications for some of you, but it's certainly for the things that Sam and I do, that's a big thing. Yeah. And hopefully at some point in the future, they will change that. But the other thing about the virtual camera is, regardless of which one you use, it's only for visuals. So if you are bringing audio into OBS, playing videos in OBS, you will need to think about how that's going to actually work to bring the sound over as well. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Just keep that in mind. Yeah, and I guess finally, with one of the other thing too about Atom, they update it all the time and they don't really tell you they've updated it, and it's really hard to even work out which version you're running at the time. So I recommend, if anything goes weird or is a bit funny, just go download it, install it again. It's amazing the new features that will suddenly appear. But the other thing too, you can actually go in and add multiple vertical destinations from this plugin. And if you've got really great internet, that's wonderful. But if you don't have great internet and you're going to 4 or 5 different locations, I'd probably recommend using something like Restream to actually take that output one time and let them redistribute it. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll also put a lot of pressure on your CPU as well as your internet connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess finally, I don't really stream anywhere, but what I do love about this is that I will record this show in horizontal and vertical, and I just leave enough space at the top for Sam and or our guests, so I can repurpose that into vertical clips really, really easily. So it's definitely worth a try. You don't have anything to lose. Obviously, OBS has a little bit of a learning curve, but we have plenty of resources, and if you've got questions, let us know about that. We're going to come back and talk about actually going live to Instagram, which is its own little fun activity, but we'll talk about that in just a second.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's a segment from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can hear more about over at johnlacey.com. That was an interview I did with Michelle J. Raymond, and she's talking about overcoming her fear of being on camera. And I just want to note that she literally just spoke at a Social Media Marketing World in San Diego from Sydney, Australia. So I love using her as an example because I think a lot of people look at being on camera and go, it's not for me, I'm not even going to try. But I swear there are good things to be had if you can push yourself through that comfort zone a little bit. Okay, so let's, this is the video and live streaming show. We've been talking, it's so wonderful to have a guest with us, but we talk a little bit longer than we normally do. So I'm going to just jump into the next segment really quickly. And this is about Instagram. And, obviously you've been able to go live from your phone for the longest time, but they've recently, I say recently, probably late last year, early this year. I don't have any great sense of time, but they've introduced this thing called Instagram Live Producer. Sam, do you want to just explain what this is and how people can use it?
Yeah, so the Instagram Live Producer is it's a desktop access, so it's not like a studio like the TikTok studio or anything like that. It does give you the ability to stream from something like OBS or StreamYard or Restream Studio to your Instagram Live using a stream URL and stream key.
Nice. So essentially, and again, I think Garen's alluded to this, that unfortunately Instagram are a little bit behind a lot of the other platforms.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just want to say, I follow some musicians. I don't know if any of you know Toasters and Moose. It's sort of a pretend band that a short film was made about 1 million years ago. They have a song called Taste the Biscuit, which went kind of viral on TikTok periodically, but they get together and they do these live streams on TikTok, and then they've started going live on Instagram. And again, this is all via their phone, but the unfortunate thing is Instagram, it literally, like, I don't know if it's the connection issue, but it literally slows down and it pitch shifts their voices and their keyboard and the piano down, and then it'll go squeaky and fast. Like, it's very underdeveloped. I think underbaked, I think, is the expression I've been using. So it's a lovely idea in theory, but in reality, it's kind of janky. Has that been your experience too, Garen?
Yeah, and I think with Sam mentioning the being in Canada, we didn't have that feature with going live on the desktop through there. Like, that was only in the States. But then, of course, the Restream has came out just recently. You know, probably the last couple of months, where you can use Restream for Instagram, and I did that for a little bit. But again, it was like, I'm all about quality. I want the crispiness and all. You know, I want to make it look as good as possible. But it's just like every time I go onto the Instagram, it's almost pixelated down. Yes. And even when I'm watching people's live streams, you're right. It goes back and forth. It's just not a very good user experience. And again, for those who are live streaming, it's, again, sometimes we can get overwhelmed because there's so many different platforms to live stream on. It's, you know, which one do we go to? And it just comes down to where you're having the most success. And my Instagram page is good, but it's more of a portfolio for brands rather than me actually having a following. I don't even have 1,000 followers on TikTok or on Instagram right now, but I just use that as a portfolio to send out to brands and pitch brands with. But it was, again, it was never just the live experience wasn't good. And then again, going live on Instagram, they're not pushing me out anywhere. So I'm live streaming to the 700 followers that I have, and, you know, maybe 2-3 of them are pulling up, kind of thing. So again, it was just for someone like me who can live stream on any platform, that just wasn't one that I wanted to entertain at this point. So I don't even think about it, truthfully.
Yeah, I would say when the Instagram Live Producer came out, we were multicasting this show to Instagram at the same time, and it was pixelated, and the delay was like minutes compared to everything else. It was just like weirdly delayed. And yeah, the discoverability seemed to be like 99% followers. So it wasn't a great experience on either end, I think. Whereas I think if you do it straight from the phone, it is slightly better quality and maybe other stuff. It's hard to actually watch it when you're doing it from your phone. So who knows? I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, if you've got the following there, then it's probably worth using. But if you're like, yeah, I also have about a few thousand at most, then yeah, other things are probably the priority.
And I think in some ways, it's probably still worth trying these things out and just experimenting a little bit. But unfortunately, it is so far behind almost every other live streaming experience. And I don't know if they've got plans to catch up. I'm not really sure. Because Instagram was traditionally about photos, and then at some point they decided they were going all in on video, and then I think they sort of backtracked a little bit because their audience loved photos, so they went back to that. It's really, it's difficult to know what the direction of that platform is, but let's, in the event that you want to do this to Instagram or really any of the vertical platforms, I just want to talk about the different ways that you can do this. And obviously, you certainly could do this via Atom. There is a few extra steps, and I think Sam's got a video which we'll watch in a second explaining those. It's certainly on Restream, which we used to use on this show, and I know Garen uses periodically as well. They literally have sort of buttons on the lower left-hand side there, which just switches the canvas to the studio experience from vertical to horizontal. So in that sense, it's really, really easy. Over on StreamYard, if you go into the settings, the general settings, they've got an orientation option there, so you can switch between landscape and portrait. And once that's available, those options will be there. A lot of the assets, the banners, the comments and stuff will actually appear at the top of the screen in both of those experiences. But Sam, do you want to introduce the video?
Yeah, I mean, my video is actually StreamYard to Instagram, but the ATEM experience would be relatively the same as far as entering the URL and stream key.
Absolutely. And I do actually have a video on my channel too, if you want to go from ATEM to Instagram specifically. You can check that out later. But let's have a look at this one. So this is going from StreamYard to Instagram. And I'm sure Sam's video will explain this, but there are a few extra steps that you have to do to go live on StreamYard that you wouldn't need to do on Facebook or on YouTube and a few other places.
And it's every time.
Every single time, yes.
Yeah.
And it has anyway, I won't spoil it for you. Let's check it out right now.
If you're looking to use StreamYard to go live to Instagram Live, I have the tutorial for you, and I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions. Sit back and watch me. Sit back and watch it. All right, we're going to start inside StreamYard, and we're going to create a new broadcast. We're going to hit live stream, and instead of selecting a platform, if you haven't already added Instagram, we're going to add a new destination. Click on the plus and hit that custom RTMP. Now, flip over to Instagram. All right, once inside Instagram, you're going to find on the left side the create button. Click that. Drop down to where it says live video and click that. You will now add the title of your stream for Instagram. And below that field, you'll find a drop down that says audience. You can click on that and either do public or practice. Practice is great if you're testing. Select one of those and hit the next button. On this next screen, you will be presented with two fields you can copy, the stream URL and the stream key. Keep in mind the stream key is personal to your account. Do not share that. Anyone who has that stream key could stream to your Instagram account. Keep in mind the stream key is a one-time use key, so you'll have to regenerate this before every time you stream, and it has a 5-hour limit. So if you don't stream within 5 hours, you're going to have to create a new stream key. That being said, grab your stream URL and head back into StreamYard. Quick side note, do not close that Instagram Live producer window. You will need that to start your stream on Instagram and see chat. That first field that says RTMP server URL is our Instagram server URL. So we'll drop that in there and go back over to Instagram, copy the stream key, and that will go into our StreamYard second field, which is stream key. The last one is nickname. This is something for you personally to remember what you've done. We're going to write IG test because we're doing a test. You can ignore the I have a server password and hit add RTMP server. This will automatically be added to your StreamYard list of destinations, and you can now enter a broadcast title and then hit create live stream. This will take a second to activate and will take you inside the StreamYard dashboard. All right, make sure your camera and microphone show up. And then head over to that general tab in settings. It'll automatically default to landscape, so you want to click this one next to landscape that says portrait, which will now allow you to stream vertically. You can close that out and enter the studio, and now you will see a vertical dashboard for StreamYard. Make sure to add yourself to stage. StreamYard will default to giving you several scenes. You can click between those if you have guests or media to play. But once you are ready, you can click on Go Live, and then once again, Go Live under that. And at this time, you will need to go back to your Instagram producer, and you should not have closed that window, as I told you, or you won't be able to finish your stream, or start it technically. Head back into Instagram. You will start to see yourself show up. There's going to be a little bit of an audio and video delay compared to the StreamYard broadcast, but yeah, you'll see that there. And once you're ready, you hit go live on Instagram, and boom, you are now streaming on Instagram. Again, I have done the practice one, so nobody can see this. If you are only streaming on Instagram, you'll want to stay on the Instagram side of things, and you'll be able to see your Instagram chat there. If you're multicasting through StreamYard to other vertical platforms, you will not see Instagram chat show up in StreamYard, so you do need to have this window open somewhere for you to see. I like to have my phone available so I can just see it there and mount that near my my monitor if I'm in a situation where I don't have an extra monitor to use. But that is all you need. Once you are done with your stream, you will click the End Live Stream button on the Instagram side, and then you can discard that video. If you have already set it up in your settings, it will save the archive, and I'll show you where that is now. So this setting is only available in the mobile app itself, not on the desktop experience. You will go into your settings, hit that cog wheel, and then head to archiving and downloading, and then look for Save Live to Archive and make sure that that is toggled on and it is blue. And now when you end your live stream and hit that discard video, it's not really deleting it, it is archiving it, and you will be able to find that on your mobile device in the archive. And then you can download it to your camera roll or publish it as a post or a reel, I believe. There you go.
Absolutely. So I guess the only thing I would add to that is that it's a really good idea to go to that Instagram window or tab, right click on it and go mute site, I believe it's called. Because not only will you hear yourself back, but you will hear yourself back with considerable delay. So you will say something and 2 minutes later, you'll hear it again and be like, what the hell was that? So
it's very
Instagram... So Instagram is definitely something, if you want to go live, you can certainly do that on your phone. That's probably the way I would recommend at this point in time. But if you do want to play with the live producer, you can definitely check that out. I just want to answer this question from Saeed before we move on. So TikTok content can basically only be watched on mobile, right? No, you can actually watch it from TikTok.com. So you can do that. And I think you can even do that without being signed in. So you can do that even if you're not using the app. But clearly there's not a lot of love for TikTok amongst some of the people in our audience, but that's fine. We're just going to jump straight into our last... Oh, go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say, also, TikTok is not exclusively vertical. Recently, they did enable a horizontal mode, which I'm not sure if that extends to streaming as well or just video, but they are pushing that. So if you are a TikTok creator and you're not making long form horizontal videos, or like at least archiving, uploading your archive of horizontal videos, you should start doing that.
Nice. Okay, this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey. I'm joined by Sam Proof as always, and our special guest for today, Garen Bellany from Micro Studio. So finally, as we start to wrap up a little bit, what are some of the things you think people should consider in terms of, streaming in a vertical format? And maybe we'll go to Garen first.
I mean, obviously you want to consider your platform, just what you're wanting to do and everything like that as well. But back of the camera is one of the biggest things, is what I like to do. And another reason why the back of the camera is just to limit yourself from wanting to look at yourself and looking at your reflection kind of things, so you can have more of an intimate conversation with your audience. But again, I love the vertical aspect of it because everybody can do it on their smartphones. So again, I did it just to simply eliminate the whole thing where you don't need a studio to start creating content. But again, when you're just starting out on live streaming, the purpose is not the following. It's creating that content and repurposing the content on the back half. So if you are just starting out on live streaming, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of people to show up at the start anyway. So it's a good place to start to practice and build your brand and go from there. But those are the few things that I would say to consider.
Absolutely. Sam, do you have any thoughts on things that people might want to consider before they get started going vertical?
Yeah, I would put some googly eyes on the back of my... No, I'm just kidding. We can make eye-to-eye contact. No, those are very good points. And I would say, just consider why you're, doing whatever live stream you're doing, whether it's vertical or horizontal, like what the end goal is, what the messaging is, what the value to the viewer is, and then pick your platform based on, where you have that audience.
Absolutely. I guess the only thing I would sort of add to all of that is, and again, it kind of depends on how elaborate your production is going to be, but especially if you're thinking about doing horizontal and vertical together, make sure you redesign those stream assets to fit the canvas of vertical, because as I noted in Restream Studio, in StreamYard, when you go with those vertical options, a lot of those things will appear at the top of the screen. So just make sure that you're not sort of stretching something into a canvas that doesn't really fit. And just be mindful too that a lot of these platforms will have their own sort of user interface elements at different places. So make sure you're not sort of competing with that screen real estate. So Certainly, if you aren't already going live vertically, we'd love to hear like what other questions and comments you have, and if there are things that you want us to cover on future shows, we'd love to hear that as well. But thank you, Garen, for joining us again. You're actually our first return guest, which is exciting. It's
Hey,
always
there we
wonderful to have you back. Where can people learn more about you and the kind of things that you're doing?
Definitely. So when in doubt, you can go to my personal portfolio. So you can go to GarenBulaney.com, GarenBulaney.com. And of course, that's all of my social media channels. It's first name, last name. So with being a live streamer, I'm hip and hopping on different platforms. Again, you know, the things that are happening with TikTok and everything right now, it's a matter of just adapting to different portfolio or different platforms that really work for you. So I have a good platform on LinkedIn, so of course I'm posting on LinkedIn all the time. But when in doubt, you can go to info@GarenBulaney.com and reach out that way, and kind of just that's just what we do. If you have interest in as far as live streaming aspect, you can go to microstudio.ca and learn more about the equipment and all of that fun stuff. But when in doubt, like I said, things change in life and a lot of things change, but first, last name and the portfolio will always be there. So when in doubt, just go to that page and I'll have some contact information on there.
Nice. And it's interesting. I genuinely didn't know a single person called Garen until I met you and Garen Perkins on LinkedIn. And you guys are a bit of a double act at that time. So that was really, really exciting to meet you. But thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us. We'll have to do this again sometime in the future because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I really enjoy what you both do, John and Sam. Thank you guys so much, and of course for just the live streaming community and contributing. Of course, education is really, really imperative. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job, just as far as consistency, but the quality is there. So anytime you both want me on the show, again, like I said, I'll do the best I can to hop on and provide as much value as I can for your community.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Just hang around and we'll have a chat after the show.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool. So Sam, that was great. We need more guests on this show, and it's not that we don't know people. It's like that logistics I referred to earlier. Hello to Brenda Meller, who's joining over from LinkedIn on from Detroit, and Saeed, being the comedian he is, says always remember to wrap your phone in tinfoil first before going on TikTok. Just kidding. Okay, Sam. So next week on the show, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite OBS Studio plugins, and hopefully you'll be here to join us for that one. But again, if you are interested in OBS, please join us for next week's show. Even if you're not, I think it's worthwhile being aware that these things exist. But Sam, where can people learn more about you and watch your content and follow you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv. All of my social links are in the top left there. Hit me up on any social that you like to use. And if you didn't get enough cats this week, head over to cuteavalanche.com and find our 24/7 kitten cam. All of those cats are going to be available for adoption this Saturday in the Los Angeles area. So if you're looking for a fur pal, come find us. And if you were intrigued by my circle mask during that video that explained the StreamYard to Instagram connection, we're going to talk about how I did that next week, provided I make it.
Provided he's here. Saying provided I make it sounds a little bit more dramatic.
Dun, dun, dun.
And if you want to catch up with anything I'm doing, head over to johnlacey.com. Got a whole bunch of articles there, and there are social media links at the bottom of all those pages. I'm mostly active on YouTube and LinkedIn, so go find me there. But it'd be great to have your company. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. It's always great to have so much activity in the chat. We really, really appreciate it. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.